Hey, what's going on, guys? Ryan Sprague here from Somewhere in the Ring, and Andrew and I just wrapped an awesome episode of the podcast. We can't wait to share it with you soon, but before we do that, we need your help. We need your ratings and reviews, specifically on Apple Podcasts and on Spotify, the two largest platforms in the world to get podcasts. Now, we are a small independent podcast, and we are going up against some pretty big hitters in the wrestling world. So in order to get featured, in order for us to find new listeners and gain visibility, we need your help. And that starts with a rating and a review over on Apple Podcasts or on Spotify. It takes just a couple moments, but it means the world of difference to us. So from Andrew and I, thank you so much for your unwavering support. We can't wait to keep doing the show, and we hope you will consider a rating and review for us somewhere in the ring.
The following podcast is scheduled for one recording with no time limit. Making their way down to Somewhere in the Ring, Andrew Sanford and Ryan Sprague.
We usually do some fake guitar. Can you do fake guitar, Bill? Can you do a little fake guitar? Yeah.
My fingers can't fit around the fret, man. Just can't
That's
do
fair.
it.
That's what you got to get accustomed, like we did. All right, this is Somewhere in the Ring. I am Andrew Sanford, as always, with my co-host Ryan Sprague. With a show where we talk about pro wrestling, mostly WWE wrestling. Sometimes we talk about other stuff. We'll keep that in mind for next week. And this week, we have a very special guest who has been talked about on this podcast before. Comedian, actor, improviser, Bill Schaefer. Bill!
Oh my gosh, thank you for having me. Yes, all those things are true. Thank you.
They are very true. And I would argue you excel at all three of them. I'm going to embarrass you very briefly by saying that I got to... So Bill was one of the stars of my short film, Pay the Tithe, that I wrote and directed. I've talked about on here. He's incredible in it. A lot of fun to shoot with. And before that, the thing that got him hired was I got to see a video of him playing Morpheus at the Pit, I think it was, right? Was that at the Pit?
UCB.
Yeah. Oh, UCB, even better. And Morpheus going for the pills, the classic, you choose and not being able to find them in his pockets, which is one of the funniest things that I have ever seen. So I'm going to set the bar. I still remember it very fondly. That was 3 years ago, as we were discussing before we sat down here. But I'm just tickled to have you, Bill. How are you?
I'm good, man. Thank you for that throwback. It's one of the things I'm most proud of. Just Morpheus, Neo in my hand is a... Oh, shit. Oh, no. Trinity, you don't...
I love that. I love that, man.
I'm good. I'm good.
Bill, for for our listeners and me, I guess. I have seen you in Pay the Tithe. Wonderful, wonderful job in that. I love the movie. But tell us a little about yourself. I started Instagram stalking you. I've seen some of your stand-up. But tell us a little about who you are, where you come from, maybe your social security number, wherever you want to start, man.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah, tell us a little about
I can dig that out for you, no problem. Born and raised in New York, from Queens, but now I live in Williamsburg, where all the cool kids are. Actor, writer, stand-up, as Andrew said. Right now, working on writing, trying to write feature lengths, and those are hard. Yes. Writing some pilots, those are hard. Worked on an animated show with a buddy of mine. That we had a few meetings, and I was really proud of. We were getting a meeting with Stupid Buddies, who make Robot Chicken. And those are some of the best people. And then this thing called the writer's strike happened, and all those meetings were canceled. And then turns out 8 months later, they don't want to talk to you because 8 months changes everything.
Sure.
Yep.
So, you know, in the meantime, paying our bills, you know, bartending, the huge, the New York City grind
on that,
baby.
brother. Yep.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I'll be
All
doing
three
that
of us.
tonight. Yeah.
Cool.
That's it. And patiently awaiting a basketball season, and I did
That's
go
relatively soon, right?
It's very
Yeah.
October, and I apologize for the state of my voice. I did go to a Met game on Monday, and got a little too into it. There was a walk-off home in the bottom of the ninth.
Come
You
on.
scream.
Excuse me while I take a sip of my coffee.
He knows.
Yeah.
He knows. The Alvarez walk-off, and it's great. And then you're on the 7 train, and someone's like, "Bill, what'd you think?" And you're like, "I thought it was great, man. It was awesome.
That's so good."
You on full doc. It was fantastic, man. What a time to be alive. Still recuperating from that.
It's usually yelling because of bad reasons. At a Mets
absolutely.
Game,
right. Yeah. It's been a pretty good year. I would prefer not to talk about baseball because has been a painful season for me. Coming off a World Series win, watching my guys just tank pretty significantly. But I got high hopes for you twos.
At least they're consistent, Andrew.
At least they're consistent. We had one good year, and then we're right back to normal. And it's just what it is.
I like when my sports team keeps me humble. They're like, "Relax, dude."
Yeah.
That's how it should be.
Yep. So we had you watch a match ahead of time, Bill, that we are going to talk about. Great American Bash, Undertaker versus the Dudley Boyz. Before we get into that, though, I have to talk about something very briefly that I was telling Ryan about the other day. Bill, this will be a complete surprise to you. So this past weekend, my parents were visiting. No big deal. It's whatever. And at one point, my dad wants to go to the bodega to get a Coke. And I'm like, okay. So we go around the corner. I'm in Jersey City now, Bill. Like right in the heights of Jersey City. And the whole time I'm just like, just a nice little walk, chat with my dad. And then we get out there, and all of a sudden, a Cybertruck starts driving by. All right, like a big, dark, black Cybertruck. And I am no fan of Elon Musk, as has been made clear on this podcast many times. I am no fan of Cybertrucks. But my dad was immediately like, "Oh, wait, whoa, a Cyber. I've never seen one in person before. Whoa." Like, he's 70. But he was like, that's oh, man. And he just keeps talking about it, and they're driving past. And then they stop, and they go to park. And I know my dad. I'm like, he's going to want to take a picture of this. So he walks up, goes to start taking a picture of the Cybertruck. And the guy that's driving it gets out, and I will say the guy's getting out. My dad's like, "Mind if I take a picture of the truck?" And he's like, "Oh yeah, no, that's all right, yeah." And like being kind of weird and cagey. Now immediately, I knew this man thinks my dad wants a picture of him.
Oh no.
So. But my dad could not care less. Just wants a picture. Literally waits for the person to move, and then is like,
"Can you get out of the way?"
Yeah. And starts taking a picture. And then the guy kind of like walks by, and he's like tucking his head down, and he's like, "Oh yeah, okay." And my dad's like, "Yeah, just gonna give it." He's like, "All right, yeah, cool, man." He's like, "Yeah, thanks for letting me take a picture." He's like, "Oh yeah, no, nice to meet you," and goes and walks away. And my dad. He's kind of like lingering, and I think like a woman was getting out of the other side, and he's waiting for them, but then kind of, I think, hanging back to see what my dad's going to do. And then walks away. And I had to tell my dad about 20 feet later that he just scared the shit out of WWE superstar Sheamus. Like, immediately, I was like, I like for 2 seconds, I was like, man, that cop's pretty big, because I just assumed a cop was driving a Cybertruck. And then and I was like, oh my God, no, that's Sheamus. I was like, I know that handlebar mustache and pasty white skin. Yeah. And anywhere. He's arguably one of the most recognizable WWE superstars currently on roster. My dad had zero idea who he was.
Wow.
was just like snapping away at his side.
What was he doing at a bodega in Jersey City?
So he was on my assumption is so Fanatic Fest, which you had told me was in New York this weekend.
Right.
And I think he just decided to stay on the other side of the river. And probably had an Airbnb nearby because he was on a street next to us. This was like after we had left the bodega, he was driving by. And it was just this red. I was like, huh. And now I also, I am wearing cargo shorts, a World Series champion Rangers hat that looks more like a trucker hat. Like it's got trucker hat vibes. It's not that one. That's my one that I keep clean. 2 copies. And I am wearing a black tank top with 3 screaming skulls on it that says, "I am not the stepdad. I'm the dad that stepped up," which is a very funny shirt that I wear. So I arguably look like a wrestling fan. Like I look like I know who he was. And I was like, I'm going to play it cool. It is 9:00 at night. He seems very not put off. He was very nice, just like cagey, and not sure why these 2 men were talking to him on a Jersey City street at night in the dark of night.
The fact that your father basically asked Sheamus to get out of a picture is like the coolest thing you could possibly do. I'm gonna be honest.
Mean, these guys talk all the time about getting harassed in airports like 5 a.m. You know what I mean? For their pictures.
Wow.
Sheamus must have gone back to his Airbnb and been like, I think I was getting punked or something. This guy's like, no, get out of the picture. Take a picture of my Cybertruck. They didn't seem to know who I was.
He's still thinking about it right now, Andrew. He's like laying down and he's like, that guy was clearly a wrestling fan and he did not recognize me. Like, have I really gone that far down on the card? Like,
your dad is in Sheamus's head right now. Just in Sheamus's head.
I saw he was on Raw on Monday night, and I was like, "Nah, I can see it in his eyes. He's not thinking about Pete Dunne. He's thinking about Thomas Sanford IV, and that is."
I could tell something was off. I could definitely tell.
So funny.
Wow, what a story, man! That made my night. That made my night.
Oh yeah, Bill Ryan's in Scotland right now, so everybody knows where everybody is.
Oh, nice.
Yes.
Yeah.
Are you based in Scotland? You doing fringe stuff? What's going on there? You just live there?
I am staying as far away from fringe stuff as humanly possible.
Okay.
But I do live here. Yeah.
You do? Oh, that's sick, man.
Yeah. That being said, I just saw a fringe show last night, so that's the Hypocrite coming out.
You saw one last week too, didn't you?
I did. So there's the second Hypocrite coming out in me. Yeah, I've seen 2 fringe shows. The one last night was interesting. It was a show based primarily on writers of fan fiction. So that was interesting.
Okay.
Kind of a world I don't know much about. You know, I am a writer, but I've never dived into the fan fiction world. Dove. That's what I thought. Thank you.
Divin. Sorry,
that's what you're here for.
Divin. Yep.
Okay.
Divin.
Okay. Thank you.
Never Divin.
Clearly not a writer. So that was eye opening to say the least. It was a good time. It's interesting being here for the fringe because I moved to Scotland like the same. This is how much Scotland didn't want me, Bill. I moved here, there was a garbage strike on. So the entire streets were filled with garbage. It smelled like New York City in the middle of summer. Yeah. The fringe was in like its peak. Garbage everywhere. And then the Queen died. So that was all within the span of about 48 hours. So that was my welcoming to Scotland. So,
you have to grab someone on the street. And you're like, it's not always like this, right? It's not always like this.
Things get better, right? Things get better.
Tell me. Not quite.
But I digress.
But I want to talk about Undertaker. But it reminds me of my buddy Dave, one of my best friends, during COVID. You know, tough time for everybody for a variety of reasons. And he's from Oakland, Northern California. We're in New York, and he's like, I think I got to move home for like my mental health. You know, we're here in New York, summer, like height of BLM. All like there's a lot going on. And I was like, dude, you got to do what's best for you. You got to do that. The day he lands in San Francisco, they cannot leave their houses because that's when those wildfires turned like the West Coast into like a hellscape. And he's just like, here's the view from my room. And I was like, I am so sorry. like he left New York to like go to Mordor for like 2 weeks. Like just like couldn't leave.
I love it.
And he's just like, dude, I'm barely hanging on. I was like, I am so sorry. You can't.
Please don't let go, Dave.
Those pictures were gnarly. Wow. It's like out of like Dune or something. It was like, that's bad. That's really bad.
Whoa.
Surreal.
Okay.
Well,
Bill.
Yeah, Andrew, please.
What is your relationship with wrestling? I feel like I remember talking to you about wrestling a little bit, but for the folks at home, are you a wrestling fan? Have you always been a wrestling fan? Are you a lapsed wrestling fan? They come in all shapes and sizes.
Well, as you were saying this, I realized I should have done this in my little bio up top, but I'm a wrestling fan, grew up a wrestling fan. I'm a casual now. You know what I mean? I tune in for the big events. You know, you got friends doing 2-night WrestleMania. You'll go in, you're like, get me up to speed. Pretty interested in AEW. A lot of like the style that they do over there. But I tune in every once in a while. Like 2000 to 2010, that's like my chef's kiss era. Favorite match of all time. Shawn Michaels super kicking Shelton Benjamin when he goes off the ropes. Like
we reviewed
that match. Yeah,
we have a match commentary on that match. That's an incredible match.
Shelton Benjamin, my favorite wrestler. The guy just had no mic skills. He had the opposite of mic skills. But man, could have been something. But what I used to do in the city, and we do it, again, COVID kind of put a hamper on everything. There is a XSW, Extremely Serious Wrestling, is this comedy wrestling league that I was in. I was the champ.
Really?
So we would do these little comedy wrestling matches. We didn't like have a ring or anything. So we had these mats and people can mime the action. I'm an athlete. I used to do mixed martial arts. I have some cauliflower ear. I'm like, toss me. We do spine busters to each other. But the whole gimmick was that everyone had like a joke character. I was the champ for a little bit. My character was Clayton Thomas Ellis. I was a All-American football player. Clayton Thomas Ellis. The initials are
CTE.
CTE.
Oh my God!
I'm so sorry that I just stepped on the joke, but I was
no, that's it. And all I did was I just headbutted everything. It didn't hurt me. I was stupid. I would set up like I was gonna do like an RKO and just it'd be a headbutt. Like that was the whole thing. And then I'd go to the top rope, do a diving headbutt, and I'd do a little RVD CTE. It was so much fun. It was so much fun. One of our other characters, Sean from Michaels, his costume was made out of like arts and crap. Sean from Michaels.
Oh my God, I love it.
My buddy Matt Rain was Candy Kane. He was Kane, but dressed up like a big candy. Like just take a serious wrestler and make it like a joke. So I've always had one foot in the world of wrestling that way because the show actually it blew up. They started streaming it, and we had some guests come by. I was in the ring with Orange Cassidy before he like really blew up. Doing Orange Cassidy shtick. So that's like my 1 foot into wrestling. I was never really like out, but I'm sorry guys for all the hardcores out there. I'm not watching Raw every Monday. I'm so sorry. But now that it's on Netflix, when it's coming to Netflix, that will change.
January. That's fair. Hey, and we say all the time, we have stolen this from other podcasts, but we are lovers, not experts.
Absolutely.
So don't you worry.
Bill, I'm disappointed that you don't have 3 hours to spare every Monday.
Yeah, every Monday
My
night.
God.
Yeah.
Give me a freaking break.
And apparently I think Ryan and I talked about this last time. When it moves to Netflix, it's going down to 2 hours, and then SmackDown is going to 3 hours because they need.
We just can't get it down to 2 hours.
We'd add bucks.
Oh
$10 billion over 10 years wasn't enough, or whatever that insane Netflix contract is.
Wow.
Bill,
I will say,
awesome.
Bill, that's awesome, man. Like that's
when
we ask
back.
that question of guests. Like you never know what to expect, and I can honestly say I was not expecting that answer. So
I like totally forgot because no one ever cares, and I'm just like, wait, where am I? What the hell? This is when you talk about it.
We care. We clearly care.
I know it's a performance space in Dumbo. Let's bring it back. Bill.
We're looking for a home for it.
Return of CTE, baby.
We will talk off, Mike. I think
that is
I know his face.
A very reasonable, feasible thing to do. They were looking for a home, and it'd be great. I'm down to talk about that.
Ooh, excellent. But today we are talking Great American Bash 2004. 2004.
That's correct.
Yeah, 2004. Yeah. Undertaker against the Dudley Boyz. Paul Heyman accompanying the Dudley Boyz. This was, I believe, after I think they were starting to splinter the ECW show. They were going to add, it was going to be the Tuesday night slot that is now NXT was ECW for a while. A revitalized ECW that did not go over too well, but did give us CM Punk originally.
You're using revitalized very loosely for that version of ECW, very loosely.
That being said, I do remember, I'm 90% positive that during that run, at one point, poor Hardcore Holly, one of my favorite wrestlers, got cut on his back in a way that looked like he had a cut that it looked like he got, like he was getting vivisected. Like it was like shoulder down to his it was
like under his like shoulder blade, like right in the meat of his back. And he was like flapping open and just gushing. Yeah.
What did he cut it on?
I think on
the table. Oh, stairs?
I think it was the ring stairs. But
okay.
And that was either before or after he got a staph infection in one of his arms that almost killed him.
Oh, God.
I remember that being a storyline for a little bit, too. Like, he almost got took out, came back, and then was like, damn it.
What is with wrestlers and staph infections? I've heard that, time and time again.
Honestly, that's a good question.
Yeah.
I'm not
What's
sure.
the deal with staph infections?
You have to say it like Seinfeld. Yeah.
I had to. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
That's my bottom barrel comedy right there, guys.
So we always like to do insane matches when we bring somebody on. We've had the custody of Dominic Mysterio match, if you remember that one. What was the other? We had another we had Chris watch.
It was One Night Stand.
Oh yes, he did One Night Stand. That was another ECW thing with John Cena against RVD. We had somebody watch the oh shoot. I'm sorry. It doesn't matter.
We had it was like a Hell in a Cell, I think, maybe with Triple H. There's a sledgehammer involved. I don't know.
Gonna do that one.
Okay.
But no, it was what it was. It was Hogan against Sergeant Slaughter.
There it
is. That's what it was. Yep.
Hulk Hogan, the most non-racist wrestler of all time.
Look, guys, go to Pajiba.com, Pajiba, and read me talking about Hulk Hogan definitely not being a racist. He's very much a racist. And so
the guy from Florida is racist. You know, like
what?
It's like the clues are there. We just didn't want to believe, like the whole time.
So anyway, Great American Bash. Undertaker against the Dudley Boyz. The stipulation for this one was that if Undertaker did, and it's not even really a stipulation, it's just more of a threat that he, I guess, had no power against. That if he did not lose to the Dudley Boyz and show that he supported ECW, Paul Heyman was going to bury Paul Bearer in cement.
Yeah, why not?
Drowned and bury him in cement. And
I mean, this is how you settle any dispute. I mean, come on, guys.
Paul Bearer, who I really have a whole new appreciation for, especially I never knew that he played a character once when he first started, and then again in like TNA at one point called Percy Pringles the Third, which is one of the greatest names I think I've ever read. I was like, that's incredible. But yes, Percy Pringles, PP the Third.
Bill, what is your relationship to Paul Bearer and Undertaker? I mean, in terms of knowledge, I don't mean like, are you second cousins or anything?
Yeah. No, he comes over for Thanksgiving every other year.
I figured.
Always empty-handed. No one says anything.
Strikes me as the type. Yeah,
they let it slide.
Like Paul Bearer. Paul Bearer, Undertaker. I just think of like those OG WrestleMania is when Undertaker was a supernatural character and Paul Bearer was there to like humanize him. And then obviously people grew up a little bit. And then so Paul Bearer went with. But yeah, outside of like their historical connection, I don't have a personal connection to the Paul Bearer character, which, and in the match, I know we'll get into it. You can really, no one in Connecticut seems to care either about their connection. So Michael Cole is just like his mentor, his confidant. I'm like, you're telling me how to feel? I don't feel it myself, but yeah.
No, yeah. Oh man, I will say there were like
really trying to like nail this connection. I'm like, if you're gonna do a storyline like this, it should just be inherent. You should be trying to sell the relationship once the match has started. Yeah.
It's also it's true too, because we're like, there was a break there, but I feel like between Undertaker, well, it was like Ministry of Darkness, but there was a moment in time when Paul Bearer was just like, I don't forget about you, Taker, I want Kane, and like that was his thing. So it's like there's not even like a strong connection there. You're right, like they really. I thought Michael Cole and Taz were the real workers of this match. They tried. They were pushing
so
hard. They were pushing real hard.
Everyone tried. I want to just say that off the bat.
Absolutely, that's fair. Yeah, no, it wasn't a bad match.
No, and even Paul Bearer and when he was there, which we'll get to, and what's his name? ECW man there. Yeah, thank you, Paul Heyman.
Always great.
Just like they gave this their all, and the audience was just like, no. Like,
yeah, they really were. Not, that crowd was not into it. But then, so the match kicks off, and there is a lot of. So Paul Heyman is up there with Paul Bearer. They got a big old cement truck. They got a nice lever, which is just my favorite kind of like, aha. So they got all that going, and it's a handicap match, which is already kind of fun in and of itself. Like this idea and the Dudley Boyz look jacked in this match. Yeah, they really do. And I love Bubba's like the kind of football jersey Dudley Boyz. They're like merch in the early 2000s for WWE was rad. I might be looking at it through some rose-colored glasses, but I remember some really, really, really good stuff.
It was jean shorts, baby.
Jean shorts, yeah,
jean shorts all the way.
But they get into this match, and I was honestly wondering how much the cement was gonna take part in the beginnings of the match, because they go back and forth quite a bit.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Like there's a lot of like, oh, we're in the ring, and then now the camera's on Paul Bearer, and like Paul Heyman is like, you better not, you're my dog. Keep calling him his dog.
What was that? What was the whole dog thing?
You're my dog. Do the right thing.
What am I missing?
Is the right thing?
Yeah,
and that's also notoriously what you say to dogs to get them to understand what you
the
want
right
from
thing.
You grab their face, you put it in their pee, and you go, "Do the right thing."
Yeah.
Do the right thing.
Now, Andrew, you might know this. Bill, you might too. I was not watching at this time when this match took place in the mid 2000s there, but was this after Taker had become the American badass? Isn't this like when he transitioned back into the dead man sort of situation?
Yeah.
Okay.
Back, yeah.
So that had already happened. Got it.
And you can tell because he's got his kind of Anton Chigurh hair, the villain from No Country for Old Men. Like when it's back, because it's like not fully grown out yet. But it's not like short like it was for American Badass, and he's clearly trying to grow it out. And every time his bangs kept falling in front of my face, I kept thinking he was going to be like, choose a side of the coin. You have to pick. Like there wasn't any of that, but that's what it looks like.
I never thought of the parallels between Undertaker and Anton Chigurh from No Country for Old Men. They are the same character. At their essence, they are the same kind of character.
They kind of are, yeah. And it's not the only years later when Chris Jericho would return to WWE, he literally said, he's like, yeah, I just want to do what they did on No Country for Old Men. I'm just going to walk. He was like, last time I was here, I was loud and crazy and stuff. And this time I'm going to do this. I just walked to the ring very stoically. And to Jericho's credit, he always, when he like returns or like gets back, it's always with a new angle, a new thing, a new, like, just trying to reinvent and try something different. Which Undertaker did for a little while. And I'll throw something out to you guys. It's just kind of a fun discussion topic. Do you think he should have stayed as the American Badass? Do you think there's any going back to the supernatural stuff? Obviously they did, but I would argue it's a little less successful.
Yeah. Oof. Andrew, that's a good question. Because the kid in me, and also just like what we know is right in the world, is like, no, you need Undertaker. But when you think of a character as iconic as Undertaker, the fact that he was able to do this new character and people did not hate it is a testament. And if you can rebrand like that and become, I don't know, grounded, that's a huge pivot that not a lot of people can make, going from like a goofy character to a serious one. So they both have, so like, yeah, again, the kid in me is like, gotta be Undertaker, but I'm like, there's a world where he could have just been this motorcycle riding badass.
Yeah.
He could be wrestling for all time and we'd never ask any questions. And he could still call himself Undertaker and we'd be like, yeah, that makes sense. He's just a biker from Texas and his code name is Undertaker. Like, there's gotta be a Hell's Angel named Undertaker. This all makes sense. But then he goes back and you're like, he can do lightning bolts and you're like, I like it. But it's a little more of a, when you're like an adult talking in a bar about wrestling and then you hear yourself out loud, you're like, no, it is dumb. No, you're right. No, it is. For a choreographed dance with men in tights, this is a bridge too far sometimes. You are right. Like, they bury him and he comes back to life every time. You're like, all right, every time. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny too, and it's better than at one point whenever he loses to Lesnar at WrestleMania. That was like when he was doing the whole like, I'm a UFC fighter now as well as dead. I'm gonna share. He had like a little faux hawk that like went around, like it was this weird, and he was like wearing the big gloves and doing the punches, and he's like, I'm a UFC guy. And
he's a dead man. He's like, there's a jiu-jitsu class in the underworld, and I took it.
Yeah,
you know, like they had a Groupon for 2 weeks, and I do triangle chokes now.
Oh my god, I love that.
I do remember how huge of it was like called Hell's Gate or whatever.
Gate.
The triangle. Yep, they had the triangle choke he would do. Yeah, I remember that was a huge deal. That he had a new finisher.
He ended a WrestleMania with that, which is like how hard he wanted that to catch on. Like, he won a WrestleMania. That was Edge. Was that Edge 2009?
Ooh, maybe.
I think.
All right.
But he won the title, World Heavyweight title, off of Edge with the triangle choke, and I was like, didn't do the tombstone at WrestleMania. You really want this bad? You really want us to think you've got legit martial arts skills? You're the dead man. You do thunderbolts. Like, you can't have everything, Undertaker. Let CM Punk have something.
Yeah. Seriously.
That's his thing.
And speaking of the lightning bolt, before we get into the lightning bolts, so we pretty early they start dumping cement into Paul Bearer's little glass chamber. Bill, did you by any chance look up how they did that?
I looked it up. Paul Bearer, some of it's pre-taped. Paul Bearer's not actually in it for some of it. Right. Am I missing anything else? I think that's
that was it. Right? No, I like giving our guest, if the guests have the information, it's more fun to hear.
Yeah. That's pretty much it. They had a lot of what Paul Bearer did was pre-recorded. So they did like a dress rehearsal where he actually let's be upfront. Like, he was there and they poured it up over his head. Like, that was all real.
Insane.
Right. But they did say that it was like half cement, half oatmeal, so it wasn't really going to harden.
Thank you.
Right?
The hardening, because I remember when I was little, they were like doing the sidewalk in front of our house, and me and my brothers went out at one point and like, I think like put sticks in it or something, like tried to do like write our names, but couldn't get it to work. And eventually came back inside, and the guys the construction workers were like, "Hey, did your kids do like?" They were like, "It's okay. Just make sure they don't have any of the cement on them because it will dry." And it will be very difficult and painful to get off. So I was like,
that was awfully nice of them.
Yeah, right. Yeah. But they were just like, I was like, there's no way that they put him in actual cement. And then sure enough, I mean, again, with oatmeal, but they bury him in it. And he said he had like a button to hold on to in case something went wrong. If he let go of the button, it meant things were bad. And that they had sledgehammers ready to break it open. And then they tried to, like, I forget what he said. They tried to get it out one way and it wouldn't work. So they just opened it up and let him slide out. Just really ridiculous stuff. So yeah, I know we lost Bill here for a sec, but I'm sure he'll be back in a moment.
He'll be back.
Yeah,
dude. I can continue if you want.
Yeah, please.
This reminded me so much of like a Houdini situation. Like,
sure,
there was a lot of risk with this. There was no guarantees it was going to work. There were no guarantees that the glass wasn't going to break. I know they mentioned like this is bulletproof glass, but like, really, is it? I don't know.
Yeah.
Be. But
my thing with most bulletproof glass, I guess maybe I'm just thinking like Wendy's in the middle of Brooklyn kind of bulletproof glass where it's like just kind of covering everything. But it's thick usually. Like it looks a lot thicker. That glass did not look very thick, which was crazy.
Yeah.
There he is.
Whoops! I don't know what happened. Sorry.
That's okay. That's all right.
He went supernatural on us.
Yeah. One thing that I want to quickly bring up, and then we can talk about more of the match, is that, and I was glad the person interviewing Paul Heyman or Paul Bearer about this brought it up, and that's not his real name, by the way, but I don't know what it is off the top of my head. This was not long after Owen Hart had died very tragically by an ill-gotten stunt, a stunt that did not go well, because WWE bungled it significantly by not hiring union people to do it, not getting the best people to do it. And he was rightfully a little nervous about that, but then he gets paid for like a year and a half to not be on television. So I think it all worked out pretty well. He seemed pretty happy with everything. Yeah.
This and again, I think he even mentioned like I was getting paid very well, so it's very hard to say no to the WWE, and they will ask you to do the most ridiculous, dangerous sort of things, and you could almost like see the gun being held to his head, like metaphorically, obviously, but and in retrospect, but like. Yeah, you don't say no when Vince McMahon or Bruce Pritchard or someone tells you, like, you're going to do this, it's going to be great. And then you have a situation like this where it turned out it wasn't so great.
You said metaphorically gun to his head, but, like, I don't know. Vince might have had a... I don't put anything past that guy anymore, dude. He might have.
Not in the slightest. Yeah, I just
do it.
Yeah.
Do it.
So this at one point, and I was talking to Ryan about this earlier. It's very active with Paul Bearer in the beginning, but then at one point the match very much becomes just about the in-ring action. And I thought like, oh, that must be when they're like getting Paul Bearer out of there and then putting someone else in or doing something else or whatever. And like, no, I guess it was a stunt guy the whole time. And I honestly want to know who that stunt guy was.
Right?
Like, I want to hear his
because they kept filming it from the back. So you could only see the back of the guy's head. And the more I watch it, the more I'm like, man, a lot of planning went into this, which WWE is really good at. They've always had a cinematic eye, and it's only strengthened throughout the years. Whereas now, like you watch a Monday Night Raw, and it's like you're watching a 3-hour like movie. It's crazy how far they.
Let me offer a counterpoint real quick. I love the cinematic angle, because, but there's two things that happen when you do that. Is there's the product for us at home. You know what I mean?
Right.
Which works. But remember, we're talking about how quiet Connecticut was, because you probably lose something in the room. Like if you're watching that pre-tape, it's going to take you out of it a little bit. But
so true.
You know, we're sitting here on our couches. We've got Cole and Taz filling in the context we need. We've got the different angles, whatever. But I couldn't imagine watching that from the nosebleeds in Connecticut. You'd be like, "The fuck is this shit? like, what is this? Like
watching Paul Bearer get out.
I'm watching the screen. Heyman is screaming over the match. What's and you're like, yeah, you don't have Cole and Taz pulling it all together for you. You know what I mean? You also don't get, if you're in the stadium, you're not hearing Paul Bearers going, Undertaker will save me. He'll save me. He won't let me. He won't let me die. No.
Undertaker,
no.
And I also it's also, I was floored when the match ended and the whole segment ended. We'll get into that in a sec. And then it was like, oh, there's a little Chiron at the bottom. We're done. See you later. I was like, that was the last match of the night. That was the main event. That's crazy.
John Cena was there at the time. And you had this as the main event. Like, I really would have to go back and look at like what were the storylines at the time, what was hot,
I at the very
what
least
wasn't.
can pull up the match list right now, but I wonder if they maybe at least had like a dark match right afterwards or something. I know they'll do that sometimes.
They damn well better have, because that poor live audience had to watch this like
the soap
magic trick basically. And they were in on it, unfortunately. Like involuntarily, they knew how fake all
when the
they knew how fake all this was. I can't believe I just said that.
When the Chiron rolls at the end, I'm just like, this feels like I just watched like an episode of SmackDown, like the cliffhanger end. Like you're watching the pay-per-view, you go, no, I wanted my closure, not like, well, I don't want more questions after the pay-per-view. But yeah, that was the main event, and you had like JBL beat Eddie Guerrero for like the world heavyweight. Like there were like titles changing hands on the show. And,
oh my god!
And they're like,
that's heartbreaking.
It's like, let's do the Undertaker, Paul Heyman, Paul Bearer soap opera. You know, inspired choice, but like, do you end on this? Do you end on this?
Yeah. Like my only guess is they were just like, look, we can't like. There's no way we're going to be able to empty the cement out of this thing, get this guy out of there, and do all these things, and then have another match. But maybe plan different if that's the case.
My question to you guys
was JBL against Eddie Guerrero. I just looked it up at a bull rope match for the title. I would much rather watch that match.
This was like the ascent of JBL at the time too, I believe.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
One of the best heels ever. One of the best heels. So, that point of time for JBL, he was just incredible work.
Yeah. Do we know what happened to Paul Bearer? Like, was he back next week or something?
He went to TNA. He went to TNA for a little bit.
Really?
Yeah.
So he was just gone after. He died.
He was off TV for a year and a half. He got paid to go stay in Alabama, and then went and got another gig. And then I believe he comes back later. But then he sadly passed away in 2013. I want to say. So. Not for
he died
much longer.
Mm-hmm.
He died. That's insane.
I had a heart attack at 58.
Talking about like other little fun facts about the match, because I was also doing some research about it.
Excellent.
The Dudley Boyz wanted to hit Undertaker with the 3D, but no one had ever kicked out of it before, and Undertaker was like, I don't want to be the first to kick out of it. I want to like respect that move. And you're like, wow, the guy's the coolest man who's ever lived.
Wow, that is pretty awesome.
That's really cool, because like they knew they weren't going to win. They're like, don't burn your A material on me if I'm going to just like kick out.
Right.
And honestly, ultimately, like the right decision. The Dudleys are one of the best tag teams, iconic tag team. Like you think of tag teams, you think Edge, Christian, Hardys, Dudleys.
Yeah, they could not be hotter at this point.
Like,
too.
Yeah, and like obviously. The focus of the match is the 2-on-1, but it's clearly the Paul Heyman, Paul Bearer, Undertaker thing. And to not be like, hey, I want to make your guys' shtick second to me is a very nice thing to do, because he could have been like, hit with the kitchen sink, I'm going to kick out, and you guys are an afterthought in this in your own match.
Right.
Which is, very like just very cool. Shows like he's the vet. He's one of the greatest of all time for doing something like that. And what we know about someone like Hulk Hogan, goddamn diva, speaks volumes. Speaks volumes.
It really does, Bill. And the fact that I think it was Bully Ray who said, in retrospect, like this was one of the worst ideas the WWE has ever had. Over like big picture, we think it failed tremendously, but we were so incredibly honored to finally have a match with the Undertaker that we could have cared less if it wasn't received well in the arena or at home. It was a dream come true for them as not just individual wrestlers, but as a tag team too. So that was pretty cool to hear that.
For sure, man.
At least one of their dreams came true with this debacle of a match.
And then they do kind of like a reverse 3D too. They did something where they like got him up and like did like a neck breaker or something. Like they did like kind of a version of it without doing it. Which makes a lot more sense now. That's crazy.
Yeah.
And they weren't together much longer after this, which makes it kind of funny. Like so they could have done it, but that is cool of him. Like I appreciate like there's Undertaker respects the business. And he loves talking in a high-pitched voice and wearing American flags all over his clothes. Anytime I see a clip of him, it's always, well, I'm that, like, he doesn't sound like Matlock, but he might as well. And it's just this weird, like, and he's just got like always the backwards hats and the flags everywhere. And I'm just like, I need you to go back in the grave, pal.
His transformation from like Undertaker phenom to just kind of like, he's just kind of a grandpa, probably doing front-facing videos in his truck, going, "Here's the problem now, guys." Like he just looks. He's got the visor on. You're like, that is Undertaker, man. That just probably is him a little bit. Whatever.
Yeah. I'm pretty sure, Andrew, you said when he showed up at WrestleMania 40 and the lights came on, you were like, "Who is this guy going into Walmart or something?"
Just in his comfiest clothes. I was like,
no offense to anyone who goes to Walmart. I love
no. I just also no offense to people who are just like, I don't want to wear a belt tonight. Can we just have something a little loose and I'll tie it together with a drawstring? Like that's.
I'll tie the drawstring and then that'll get knotted, and then the pants they live on me now. I don't go anywhere with the pants.
So we can blow through the rest of this thing. So and the match is happening. Undertaker wins eventually, even though Paul Heyman is threatening with more cement. And then Paul Heyman's like, "All right, fine, you beat them. I'm gonna do what I said," and he's gonna go to do the lever. And the Undertaker, in the most uninspired performance I think I've ever seen, calls lightning down to stop Paul Heyman from. And I'm sorry, let me put that. Calls lightning up, because lightning doesn't come down; it goes up from the ground, as we all know. But he calls.
Someone watched Mr. Wizard.
No big deal. It's whatever. But he. Lightning comes up, and then he starts going towards Paul Heyman, and Paul Heyman, to his credit, starts screaming like he is the final girl in a horror movie, like just full on, like no, like just really committing and crawling.
I feel like that's the overarching note of the whole match, is that everyone's trying their best, but everyone's in a different movie. Like Paul Bearer is in a different movie from Paul Heyman, and like I'm just like, guys, we got to nail the tone here. Like, it really is just so funny.
Meanwhile, the freaking Dudleys are just trying to have a wrestling match. It's I'm just like, these poor guys. Like, finally, they get a chance at Taker, and even Bully Ray at one point is like, "Paul, stop with all this. Let us take care of it in the ring." Somewhere in the ring, boom.
That was one of those. It's always painful where we have moments in wrestling where they were like, "Ah, man, Vince told them that line had to be letter perfect, even though it doesn't sound like anything that either of them would say.
Right.
And they have to. He's like, no, when you get over there, you nail those 2 lines, and then that's gonna sell the rest of them. It's just there's so much emphasis, so silly.
Apparently, another little fact is, Vince McMahon is at every show, and he's actually secretly like calling the show from the back, like in a booth or whatever. He wasn't at the show; he had diverticulitis or something. Like he was phoning in and stuff because he's always going to pay attention. But he was this debacle of the main event. He also was not in the building, and you're like, is that part of it? I don't you just don't know.
Interesting.
Huh.
Yeah.
I wonder who would have been in charge that night.
He's just phoning in like, did the lightning go? Did you do the lightning? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Did Bully Ray use iambic pentameter? Perfect. All right. We're good.
Yeah, at that point when Billy Ray is going, he's like, just let us do it. You're like, he has become the voice of reason in this match. You go, I'm with him. Yes, everyone has become insane, and Bubba Ray is now the guy. I'm like, I feel for you, dude. You ever want to just go wrestle a match and you got this going on? Like we've all been there.
Yep.
You got a zombie man calling lightning down while your boss is trying to bury his best friend in cement. We've all it's.
I'm sick of it.
I want to hit my 3D and then have my chicken sandwich and go home. You know what I mean? I just want to clock in, clock out. Can't do
it. So Andrew, the lightning hits.
Yeah.
What happens next? Let's get
Paul
to
Heyman freaks
the
out,
climax.
and then Undertaker. Now, here's my favorite part, and I think it's the best work that Cole and Taz do the whole night, which is that Undertaker debatably takes far too long in doing what he does at the end of the match. I don't know if he was just gassed. I don't know if he was going for like dramatic intent, but he's like, and I guess like, look, Undertaker eventually pulls the lever and just buries Paul Heyman in a very like, I can't have any weaknesses kind of thing. But it takes him so long that Michael Cole and Taz are just like, well, that's it tonight. Like, yeah, thank goodness. Yeah, good. They say, like, oh man, it's so great that didn't happen, right? Yeah. It's a good thing. We don't want to see anybody buried. It's not like they just keep riffing and going and trying to pretend that nothing's gonna happen. And then Taker's like, haha.
Is he? Wait.
Yep.
They're gonna. Is it? I was just like, oh my god, guys! It's like Monty Python. Get on with it.
But wait, in case you guys forgot, Paul's in there. He's gonna bury Paul. I do love Taz's call, and I also love like the lightning. Like they have to know that's happening. So like the lightning comes, it shocks me because I don't expect that coming. And Taz just goes like, "Whoa, what was that?"
Yeah. I loved it. I'm just gonna say up front, like, wasn't expecting it. I've never watched this match. I've heard about it, obviously, but I had a ball watching this, and when that lightning hit, it reminded me of like, oh my god, this is why I loved the Undertaker when I
genuinely jumped. I was like, oh wow, that was crazy.
Yeah,
the test.
It got me. But then everything right after that lightning bolt hit, just steep decline from there. Yeah,
so straight. That crowd did not care that man.
The crowd didn't care. You heard Paul Bearer's voice sort of just fade out into the cement, and then it was crickets. Like I couldn't believe, like this wasn't a crowd mourning Paul Bearer or worried about. Maybe they were worried for at least stunt double safety, but like you said, Bill, like it didn't even dawn on me. Like the reason they were probably so damn quiet is because they felt cheated that night.
Yeah.
Like this is our main event at this pay-per-view. We saw all of this BS happen. We got way too much of a peek behind the proverbial curtain, I guess. And good for you guys at home. At least you got like the full picture of all of this because we didn't.
Never want to be like overly negative. Everyone's working hard or whatever.
Of course.
We're lovers.
Literally
we're not we appreciate all of it. But yeah, if you're I can just imagine if I buy a ticket to that show, when you hear handicap match, Undertaker Dudley's, what do you picture? And then what did you just get?
That's fair.
You're like
the
guy didn't go through a damn table, not once, because
not one.
Not one. So at a certain point, you kind of have to go you're like, oh, I guess I'm just not. Oh, they're just doing this tonight. Well, this is fine, but it's not what I wanted.
It's just too Undertaker forward. There's not an even split. There's not enough emphasis was put on the Dudley Boys.
Yep.
Yeah.
Like,
But that's
well,
the
I
match.
think
That's the match.
Yeah, that's the match.
Go ahead.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, man, and again, like I was looking at sort of the retrospective of a lot of the people involved with the match creatively, and Bruce Pritchard was at the tippy top. This was his, he was in charge of creative at the time, and he has gone on the record on his podcast and said this is one of the worst ideas we've ever had. I can readily admit that we really thought it was gonna work, and we thought we were sort of, what was the word he used? He said we really wanted to build a new version of the Undertaker and make his character dangerous, make him unpredictable, and I don't know if this really did it. It just kind of made him a false murderer. I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know.
They had a lot of. I feel like they had to finally, not to get too dark, and then I do have to wrap up because I gotta go wake up my kids, but. They had a lot of murder angles, and then very famously, there was a Monday Night Raw where Vince McMahon gets into a limousine that explodes. Now, I gotta say, I rewatched that segment recently. It's pretty. I can understand slightly. Well, I think even more with context why a certain former president called the WWE or called Vince McMahon worried that he had actually been blown up when that happened. That is true. But like that night / the next morning, so the weekend before was everything that happened with Chris Benoit murdering his family. And then they had to come back the next night and be like, actually, Vince is okay. That didn't happen. And also we don't care about Chris Benoit anymore. And he's a monster, and never mind. And I know we did a whole thing for him last night, but we take it all back. I might be getting that timeline a little screwed up, but I'm pretty sure it was like,
sounds right.
Tuesday.
It was Vince dies. And I'm with you. Yeah. I remember watching that live being like, surely this is scripted, but like, who can be sure? Like, it actually really did like toe a line like pretty well. Like, I was like,
really impressive. Yep. And the camera doesn't pull away. Nothing. Like it is. And then
they played with Vince being dead for like a week or so, because like the next week Stephanie came out to address Raw and she's crying, and I'm like, what? Like, is this like what is actually happening?
Yeah.
And then like the third week, they were supposed like the storyline was supposed to wrap up. You put on Raw. It's an empty arena. It's Vince McMahon in the ring by himself. He's like, tonight we were supposed to like wrap up the demise of my character, but Chris Benoit has passed away. Moving tributes. The next day, it was, what the hell are you talking about? No, we don't. We should have just waited one day for more. No, we didn't do. What are you talking about? Like, it was just like destroying that angle, which, like I said, because it was so convincing to me, it was working.
Yeah.
To pay tribute to a guy, you're just like, I can't believe you paid tribute to the guy. Like,
worst timing. If there's one thing WWE is bad at, it's timing. Like you said, with this match, with Paul Bearer dying, was right around the time when Owen Hart tragically died, as Andrew mentioned.
It was a few years later, but still, yeah.
Was it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because Owen Hart was like 98
within
or
the
99.
ballpark of a couple years.
Yeah, it's in the collective memory. It's fresh enough.
It's fresh enough that he should be terrified to be doing a stunt like this for these people.
True.
Full stop. I think my big takeaway from this match too, especially with like Pritchard talking about it, is that again, we are in 2024. We're looking back on this. Like, the Undertaker is an institution, but it's interesting to go back and watch. Like, oh no, there were creative road bumps with this character.
Yeah,
like,
sure.
No, that's a great point. Always the best. Like, there were peaks and valleys, and I remember reading those guys have all the fun. It's a book about ESPN and like the oral history of ESPN, and it's so crazy. We grew up with ESPN being the way it is. You read about it in the 80s when it's like they didn't just show scores at the bottom. Like they didn't do that. They just, because like the technology wasn't there yet.
Sure.
So in our heads, we're like, ESPN's the ultimate. But it's like, Undertaker had. They tried to make him supernatural again, and it didn't quite work. Like you forget all those times because you just think of the WrestleMania streaks. You think you're like, but there's some goofy shit in there, dude. There's some real goofy stuff that we don't talk about.
Absolutely. Yeah. Bill, thank you so much for joining us. It's been so nice to see you. So fun to talk to you. If people want more of you, where can they look?
I'm on Instagram. Bill Dugod. I'm an idiot. Also on Threads, trying to get more active on Threads. Threads is a slightly healthier, more positive space than X. Don't give your money to that guy. And yeah, I mean, I do stand up and stuff, so I'm promoting my shows on both those places. And come see a show; it'd be great.
Yeah.
Do you have any coming up?
I have a show tonight, so it won't be in time for our guests.
Yeah, fair enough.
Actually,
that's what you think. I'm going to get this out in the next 20 minutes.
September 4th,
Nice.
8 p.m. Patty's of Park Slope. I'm doing 20 minutes there.
Nice.
Yeah, fun show. If you're in the area, it'll be a lot of fun.
Yay.
Yes.
Very cool. Yeah. As you can find me on Threads as well, Half White Son of a Black Man. Go to Vimeo, watch Bill kick ass and pay the tithe.
Watch
really
us.
Incredible in it. Watch.
It will be in the show notes below, guys.
Amazing. Thank you. Head over to Pajaba, check out my writing there, and then just always keep your ears pierced. That's what I meant. Keep your ears pierced. And
I think they are. I'm definitely a product of the early 2000s. Yeah.
Everybody go help out former guests Sean Von Gorman and Joey Esposito and pick up the first issue of their new comic book, The Pedestrian, at your local comic book shops.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And it's a really fun comic book, so go check it out. Ryan, and listen to Somewhere in the Skies. Beat you to it.
Thank you, buddy. Yes, as always, my UFO-themed podcast is every Monday. You can check that out wherever you get Somewhere in the Ring. I do have my free virtual conference, Anomicon, happening September 1st, September 2nd. Over 30 speakers. We'll be talking about everything from ghosts to Bigfoot to UFOs to lake monsters. Andrew, I'm forgetting something. What else are we talking about at Anomicon?
Am I talking about something? Am I talking about Bigfoot at Anomicon?
Yes, you're giving a presentation.
Am I dusting off the bit? Okay, fine. It's about time.
It's happening.
Yep.
So you can find all of that at anomicon.com, a free virtual conference on the anomalous. But I do want to steer everyone to Bill's Instagram because I'm having a ball going through all your stand-up, man. It's hilarious. So be sure to check that out in the show notes below too, guys. And be sure to check out our Patreon, patreon.com/Somewhere in the Ring podcast. And you can find us on all the socials, including Threads as well.
Woo! Bill, at the end of the episode, we like to have our guests ring the bell to send us home. So whatever that means to you, please ring the bell. Get us out of here.
I went Notre Dame with it.
I love it. That was perfect. Thank you so much, bud.
This has been Somewhere in the Ring. Thank you for listening. Subscribe wherever you get your pods, and be sure to rate and review on Apple, Spotify, or wherever possible. We'll see you again soon, Somewhere in the Ring.
This has been a production of LIONSGATE Sound. Please rate, review, and subscribe wherever possible. Thank you for listening.